Here we go.
Get ready, get set for the best movie and pop culture talk in the universe. It's the Good Brothers on Mercado Airwaves with your hosts, Alex Mercado and Mike Mercado.
Welcome back to the Good Brothers. I'm Alex. That's Mike. We are the Good Brothers, the best damn podcast in the multiverse, in the Spider-Verse, in the Chicagoland area. Say hi to the folks, Mike.
Hi, folks. Mike.
How's it going, Mike?
Everything is everything, good brother. How are you doing today?
Nothing is nothing.
Well, good brother, fortunately for us and the fans of the Good Brothers, we have a jam-packed show. You finally got to watch Hamilton, so you're going to try to convince me why I need to spend 3 hours watching it. A bunch of different trailers came out, good brother. Our guy Gus is going to be one of the main bad guys, so we think, in a big video games. A bunch of stuff coming to the streaming verse, and of course, the sports world is on fire with some of the most recent news from all corners of the country.
It was nuts. There's so much to talk about.
So, good brother, before we get into today's show, I want to remind everybody that they can follow us all over the universe. Download these podcasts wherever you get your favorite podcasts at Mercado Airwaves. You could be a producer here on the network. Visit us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And, of course, you can support the programs by showing off some swag. Show off the goods by wearing the Mercado Airwaves apparel at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Good brother, you want to jump into the big screen or the little screen first?
I guess we can go they're all the same screen from home at the moment,
Good
but
point.
I guess we can go with the longer films, if you will.
Absolutely. And why don't we start with the longest film that we actually got to see? Good brother, this would normally be in the streaming TV section, but because it kind of was the big movie that came out over the last 10 days, you got to see Hamilton on Disney Plus. We were talking about it before we started recording about, how it's going to be parodied and how, my thoughts going into it, kind of tongue in cheek. But you actually sat down and watched over 2.5 hours worth of it. I guess it's closer to 3 hours. What did you think of it?
I'll be honest, it is a lot closer to 2.5 when you take away the credits, when you take away the intermission and the Disney intro. It actually really flies by at like a 2.5, 2:35. It doesn't feel like it. It feels like it's an hour-and-a-half film. It's that good. We're a generation that sits through a superhero film for 3 hours, It Chapter 2 for 3 hours, a Quentin Tarantino movie for 3 hours. This didn't feel like that. This flew by. I remember watching It Chapter 2 with you, and we're like, I can't believe this movie's still going on. Like, I felt every minute of it. This is the opposite. This just flies through. You're having such a fun time with these characters. You can tell everyone's so passionate about these roles. And I'll be honest, I had to give it a little bit to be like, am I obsessed because it's the newest thing I've watched, or is it that good? I believe it's that good. I think it's the best thing released on a screen in the last 2 years, including movies. And I loved Parasite. This is better. This is the best thing you can watch on a screen right now. I think it's one of the best musicals ever. And I'm a musical guy. To me, it's up there with Rent and West Side Story. I don't count Grease because Grease is very mainstream and I love it. But as a musical, I think it's one of the best ever. Arguably could be one of number one. It's acted beautifully. It's sung beautifully. The message is beautiful. The soundtrack is amazing. I went into it kind of how you were with. There's no way it can live up to the hype. There's just no way. Like it's too much. It does, and it exceeds it. It made me a believer.
Now, I obviously love musicals as well. Guilty pleasures are the High School Musicals, anything Disney. I obviously love Grease.
We were musical kids, honestly.
Yeah.
Our mother put us, for those who know, in a lot of music programs, not necessarily performing, more as chorus and band and music studies as kids. So we were always involved with music very young. So we definitely had an appreciation for musicals growing up.
Well, it's kind of the reason why The Good Brothers is such a pop culture-induced show on so many aspects. We played sports, competitive sports, the high levels. We did a lot of different things when it came to the arts. We've done a lot of different creativity, and that's what I appreciate about Hamilton and kind of what it brought out and kind of the resurgence, this, and then, maybe 5-7 years before that, the Book of Mormon. Like, there's always these little resurgences that happen. Wicked's another one that, like, definitely really helped the theater come back into prominence. My big issue with all of this is obviously hype and talk, and you and I know we work in the business of hype and talk. I'm going to go in there with open eyes, an open heart. I love, something like La La Land, which is definitely more a movie. There's a story that's more traditional to that type of medium. I'm interested to see how they incorporate what is a fantastical story of Hamilton. Obviously, there's a lot of, kind of backlash now because of the historical inaccuracy of it. But again, that is kind of the point of this stuff, is that they're not trying to make a documentary. This isn't a biopic. It's a musical. It's supposed to be fun. It's an interpretation of a story. So I'm not going to go into it with that type of jaded thought, but I also understand that that's part of the conversation. With that in mind, did you have any thoughts of that when you heard that story started coming out once it was released on Disney Plus?
No, because to me, I always tell people, if you really want a true story, read the autobiographies, like do your research. This is supposed to be entertainment, and especially this form, it's musical. There is a lot of fun little historical facts in there. Obviously, they're going to skip past a few little things for entertainment purposes. I love the way they portray George Washington, the way they do Lafayette and Hercules Mulligan and, James Adams and all these really fun characters. I'll be honest, there's this one song, and George Washington was my favorite character in his relationship with Alexander Hamilton in the film. And oh my God, Mike, I probably cried like 2 times, maybe 3. The man that plays King James is definitely a show stealer in a group of people. His name is Jonathan Drop, and he steals the show as the King of England. He comes in and does little interludes, little songs in between from the British perspective of this American country that they sent away trying to get their freedom. There's a lot of, you can definitely tell they put a lot of modern messages in there about slavery and about the country we want it to be. But I gotta be honest, George Washington, God, there's a reason everyone always says, first president, best president. Just his messages. And the one thing you do hear constantly is, even with historical accuracy, that George Washington was pretty much a really great person. He really was as good of a president as you can honestly get at that in general. And I love the way it comes across. And there's so many tear-jerking songs and so much fun stuff. And there's parts where you don't, when they do cabinet stuff, it's a rap battle. And you're like, okay, maybe this will take me out of it, but it doesn't, because it flows so well with the production.
Now, what would you say if you have the opportunity now to go see it live, to go see it in the Chicago theater, or if you were ever lucky enough to go to Broadway or something like that? What would you be more open-minded to? Do you think you'll have a different appreciation for it compared to film and live? Because one of the things I've heard from friend of the show, Matt Cummings, he is the operations manager for WCPT 820 AM here in Chicago, Chicago's only live and progressive radio station. Shout out to all you guys over there. He was mentioning that he actually saw it live in theater and had really horrible seats. And he enjoyed the music, and, obviously you're in there, but being able to watch it at home, he said he just had a different appreciation for it because you got to see the minute detail and the production of it and, the real kind of the artistry that is building a stage and having that come to life. What do you think about that, the difference between watching it on film and watching it on the theater, on the stage, like it was meant to be, quote unquote?
I understand that concept too, because I would get, if you go to a big theater and you get bad seats, it really could make a difference of how you appreciate the film. I think that's the genius of Hamilton and Disney Plus, is allowing people to go rewatch it. Because I hear a lot of people, I have a buddy too, Tom, who said the same thing. He's like, I appreciated it way more on Disney Plus the second time around. And I think that's great. Plus, this is the original Broadway New York cast. To me, this is the best of this performance. And I don't think it undermines anything that you see locally. And you know how I feel about New York. I think New York is garbage. I hate New York.
Shout out to our friends in New York.
I live in New York for just Broadway. The only good thing about New York to me is Broadway. And that is the only reason I would ever go to New York is for Broadway. That is all I love about New York. Nothing else.
So other than the New York hate, good brother, what other thoughts did you have about Hamilton? And what do you think about the potential of moving forward? Obviously, a lot of these great actor and actresses are going to have wonderful careers on the stage, in musicals, Broadway, Chicago, Los Angeles. But how many of them are going to make the transition to the silver screen, are going to make that transition to Hollywood? How many of these people do you feel we will see be the next batch of superheroes or whatever the next pop culture craze is? Do you have kind of a finger on the pulse of what people are talking about post Hamilton? And I guess there have been some people because it's been out for a couple years, but do you think there's going to be a resurgence of casting post COVID-19?
Yeah, I think so. I think besides Jonathan Groff, I think Daveed Diggs, which he's already been in Blackish. He's in a lot of TV stuff. I think he definitely stands out. He does Lafayette, so he has to do a French accent for half. And then he does Thomas Jefferson. And I love the way he portrays Thomas Jefferson because when you read about him, this man was, by today's terms, I guess you would say a pimp. Like he's whipped a lot of women and he's smoking a lot of early ganja and he's in bathhouse, like he's having a good time. Like he's definitely a fun character to look at. Obviously we have the slavery aspect, which isn't that fun, and he definitely spent a lot of time with the French during the Revolutionary War, where America needed him. But I like the way they portray his character as he was kind of just real loose and laid back at a time where no one else was that. And I love the way he portrays him. So I think him and Groff definitely steal the show when it comes to the acting. All of them do a fantastic job, but for some reason, those two, I'm going to be seeing those two in a lot of stuff coming up, I think. And Mirandel, I always have trouble with his name. I think acting-wise, he's great. He's fine.
It's Lin-Manuel Miranda.
There you go.
Lin-Manuel Miranda.
He definitely... It's hard when you're 9 out of 10 and everyone else is giving you a 10 out of 10 performance. He's definitely the least experienced actor there, but he also wrote the damn thing.
Right.
So I think him going forward, we're going to see more creative from him. And I believe he did Into the Heights, which was supposed to come out this year, which is that Hispanic Brooklyn-based musical. And I'm so excited for that. We were both really excited. Yep. They got pushed to next year, thank God, because they were smart and not ignorant. So I'm very excited about that and his potential as a writer. If I had to pick one little thing that I want to see more of was, I really can't think of anything. I guess I wanted it to be longer.
Interesting.
Is my only thing. Like, I want more. Like, give me more of this exact cast doing more of everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to watch it. I know it is an investment in time because it is long, but like you said, we watch so many and we watch so many long things in this medium. But I'm super excited.
Chapter 2, never forget.
Yeah. So with that in mind, good brothers, any final thought of Hamilton on Disney Plus? Obviously, a highly recommended watch from you. I will have my review hopefully in the next week or so. What do you think as we move forward?
I mean, I've gushed about it all the way. I'm going to say this to end. There's this video on YouTube of when Barack Obama was leaving, when he was on his last year, and he invited the cast over. And they sing my favorite song in it, which is the song of Washington saying, I'm going to step down. Like, obviously back then, if he wanted to run 10 terms, he could have ran 10 terms and won every election. And it's a song basically saying why he's stepping down, why this country has to be different, and why we need to have different people leading at different times. No matter what we think, good or bad, we can't fall back into that king. And when he sings it at the White House, oh man, I got chills, because you're like, no matter how you ever feel, I think that one thing I love about this is that it gives you that little pride of American deep down of like, man, this country really was trying to be built on a freedom of, we don't want to be indentured slaves anymore. And then it took a real hard turn. But for at least 2 hours, you can really enjoy that message of, man, I love this country. Like, we really did have to fight a lot to get what we have now. And then you get back to reality and it's not as fun. But I think it's a good escape to feel a little pride of what we fought for and the groups we were fighting with.
Let us know your thoughts on Hamilton. How did it make you feel? What do you think retrospectively if you saw it in theaters, the proper theater? We're on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, and the show is on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. Good brother, some other really fun stuff that you and I are really passionate about. Halloween is coming back next year, and we got to see a teaser trailer that kind of confirmed everything we knew. We knew who was coming back. We knew what this was going down. But did it get the juices flowing for you, knowing that we were getting the second part of what it is going to be, probably a trilogy, I believe they were mentioning? So
yeah.
Where are you at moving on to Halloween Kills? We get to see what's going to happen, at least a teaser of it, knowing it is going to be 2021. We don't have to worry about it this Halloween because thanks to some bad apples, we're not getting Halloween this year. So how are you feeling?
You know what? I loved it. And at first I was a little skeptical because I hate teaser trailers. I thought this one was perfect to give you the hope because you always wonder, you're like, okay, we saw him burn. What's the story here? I love that it's going to take place right after. Like
yes.
Literally that movie ends. It's almost like you can like a Kill Bill formula of you're going right into the action again. I love hearing Laurie Strode go, let it burn, let it burn. Like she's powerless and she's driving the opposite direction. And you're like, okay, thank you for finally explaining what's going to happen. They're going to put the fire out and he's going to survive and probably be burned. My issue is announcing a third one already.
Yes.
Because now I'm like, you have to have a really fun, creative ending in this one to get me to that last one. But I think if you just keep the formula going of continuation, like 1, 2, and 3 after another, I think it'll work. But as a teaser trailer, I loved it. It was one of the better done teaser trailers I've seen in a very long time.
I got two things for you. The only way I'm okay with them saying that we got a back-to-back one is because of COVID. They moved this to 2021, that we get Halloween 3, whatever the new one is, the one after this one is called, right after it. So it's like a few months release. I think that would be pretty cool. I don't think they're going to do that, but that would be awesome, just because of the scenario. But here's the one thing I will not accept. Here's the one thing I will not accept in Halloween Kills, especially since they told us there's going to be the third one after this one. If they kill Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm telling you right now, because that is a cheap way to get us to the next one. You cannot kill Jamie Lee Curtis in this one, knowing full well we have another one coming up. I think that is the only
I don't think you kill her at all. I think she's the one that survives, kind of like a Scream 4 thing where, like, I want to see her make it. I don't want to see her die. There's sometimes you do, and you think it fits the story. I don't think it does here. I think a redemption arc for her, finally getting her family and having a little bit of her life left, is a much better story. I'm with you. I don't want to see her die.
And to be honest, they've done it already. So I don't want to see it again.
Didn't work.
Exactly. Like, let's see it how it goes. We've seen her try to be suburban teacher mom. We've seen her die. Let's see her be what we all wanted Sarah Connor to be, essentially.
Quoting Hamilton, dying is easy, living is harder. And I like that story aspect of her being like, no, to die would be a simple storytelling plot. Like, I want to see how she moves on with her life when he truly is dead. Do I want to see Michael Myers dead? Yes, I do. I want to see you kill this man finally, because he's the only one that's never had these mystical powers. He's just insane and the whole, body, mind over will and all that stuff. But I want to see him die. I want to see closure in this series.
Let me ask you this. I mean, we'll move on because we have 2 Oscar winners we need to talk about in just a second, Ben, opposed to this. But this show was built literally on the Halloween movie. So what timeline do you believe in? Do you believe in the timeline that originated over the years because of actual releases in the movie? So the Code of Thorn and all these other crazy things, Paul Rudd. Or are you somebody that after they retcon and then they did Halloween H2O, you're like, no, that's new canon moving forward? Where are you on that? Or is this new canon? Or is all of it just crazy multiverse stuff?
I look at it as kind of a Zelda timeline where there's 3 to 4 timelines, because you have the original, which went through all those movies. Then you have the slight reboot, which kind of changed things up. Then you had Rob Zombie do his own little thing, which I appreciate it. I definitely liked the Halloween reboot from Rob Zombie, the first one.
Yeah.
I did like the backstory. I did enjoy it. Part 2 was trash. And then you have this newer version using the first one and then these 3 films going forward. So I look at it as kind of a Zelda thing where, like, we can have multiple timelines and it's okay.
Yeah, I agree. I was just wondering because when we've seen so many different things, I wonder where they're going to what they're going to steal from different time tables and different eras and stuff. But, the only one that everybody doesn't talk about is Season of the Witch, so we won't either. Good brother, you want to talk about some Oscar winners and some stuff that's going to come down the pipeline with them?
Yeah.
Greyhound, Old Guard, Tom Hanks, Charlize Theron. One is on Apple TV, one is on Netflix, one came out, one was a preview. What do you want to talk about first? Tell me how you're feeling about us seeing Oscar winners, some Hollywood A-listers, some all-timers making their way and rooting themselves really in the streaming world.
So I guess we can start with, we'll go a little quicker. Greyhound, Tom Hanks, Apple TV. Not too long. Basically a story of an unexperienced man trying to do this naval battle. I don't love Apple TV. I think it's one of those things that's going to kind of like Quibi. It'll kind of go over our heads.
Unless, can I add something?
Go ahead.
Unless Apple TV buys a Netflix or something like that. That's always been the underlying.
We might be able to talk that in a few weeks because that's kind of down the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
But you are correct. I think we're going to see a lot of mergers and buyouts coming up. Entertaining, fun little war movie if that's what you're in for. Next two movies, I would definitely recommend a lot more highly. Old Guard is based off the comic of its name. It's Charlize Theron. They're basically a group of assassins that are timeless. It also is a female director, Gina Prince Bythewood.
Nice.
Bythewood.
Yeah.
And she's going to be doing, from this movie alone, she's getting a lot of offers. We're hearing rumbling-wise. Mm-hmm. We're hearing she might be the next big action director, not just as a woman in general.
Right.
So I'm very excited about that. It holds an 82% on Rotten Tomatoes at the moment. I highly recommend it. This is definitely the action film I would recommend. It has a very variant form of almost Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy, where it's kind of that good cheesy action where it's like, oh, this is fun. Like, it's really fast paced and just really exciting. And Charlize Theron is one of my favorite actresses ever. And she is so timeless. And I think Mark Andreyko said it best, where she's for her age, Hollywood usually throws people away like that because they're terrible. And she has stood the test of time. And she has never tried to be fake, never tried to change who she is to be younger. That's how good Charlize Theron really is.
You know what's funny, too, is you watch something like, okay, we see Mad Max Fury Road, right? And we see her absolutely kill it. We've obviously seen what she did in Monster. She's a beast. Like, we know this. But then, like, she'll go from Atomic Blonde to Bombshell and then kind of figure it out, and then we get this one. Because I think Atomic Blonde is what they wanted Old Guard. They want Old Guard, what they thought Old Guard would end up being. That's what they wanted Atomic Blonde to be. And I think that's the magic of her. She kind of figures it out, and she's able to just put it all together, and somebody with some talent is able to put her in the right direction. I think that's what's really interesting about this movie compared to, like, Atomic Blonde, which had the big movie theater push.
And if you want, her range is so great. Like, look at Long Shot with Seth Rogen. I love that movie.
Yeah, I mean, Tully, like, she's a beast.
Yeah, no, we can gush about her all we want. Go watch Old Guard. I think it's great. And the last movie is on Hulu, which is Palm Springs, starring Andy Samberg and Mrs. How I Met Your Mother, Christine Milioti. It's a rom-com. It's Hulu's most successful anything ever when it comes to movies. People say Groundhog Day. I think it's a little different. I don't think, because I don't really love Groundhog Day.
Really?
I think if you put anyone else in that movie, it doesn't work. I think the only reason it works is Bill Murray.
Sure, okay,
and that's because Bill Murray's perfect.
Yeah,
and he's a Chicago guy, and we must protect him.
And all his brothers as well.
Like, beside him, I don't love it. I love this one a lot better. It's a fun rom-com. To me, this is the one, because I always look at you and Nikki. I'm like, okay, what are couples, like something you can watch together? Hamilton's one, yes. The Old Guard, I think, will have a broader audience as much as Greyhound won't. Greyhound's definitely one of those you might sit by yourself on a day, Mike.
Yeah.
But Palm Springs, I think you both would really enjoy. You and me have been the biggest Andy Samberg fans since Lonely Island first started on YouTube and SNL years and years when we were way too young to be watching any of that stuff. We're huge fans, and I love this movie. It's very cute, it's very heartwarming, and it currently has a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
So very successful. These three films, I think the reason we wanted to talk about them is it really shows the power of streaming right now. And it's changing the game of, man, you can make a lot of good movies with huge stars, do big numbers on streaming services. Okay, like this is a thing, because months ago you couldn't get a movie. You know, when we were in March, April, May, you're like rewatching Sonic the Hedgehog, or you might have gotten one. And then when we got King of Staten Island and the Five Bloods 2 months ago, I think we started really forming this. Okay, there is a lot of good entertainment. Like, we got to take that bias away of, if it's not in the theaters, it's not good, because that's just not the world we live in anymore, especially this year.
And we got Onward, that was supposed to be a big major release, and it was put on digital platforms. So it is something that
also.
Absolutely, yeah. So we're getting these. It's happening, and I think, you know, we can have the conversation now. It may be a deep dive down the road one day if we decide to do it, but it's great to see these streaming services thrive, and it obviously it's obviously the way that we're moving in the future. The one thing that's scary is we're living in COVID-19, and we know closely at home to just what you read on the internet, it's how many businesses are affected by this, and we might lose movie theaters. I mean, it's almost a guarantee, unless, you know, they're able to pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Unless the buyouts start happening and we get company mergers, which, again, you and me would have to go deep, deep down that nerdy hole of, if this buys this and this merges with this, and, you know, they just made it okay for companies to start, you know, it's starting to pass through where companies are going to be able to buy movie theaters. So Disney will own their own chain of movie theaters, probably, and we've been calling this for years, probably within the next few years, you're going to see major companies owning their own theaters, buying out these AMCs and stuff.
Do drive-ins make a comeback?
Slightly.
A real one.
So I still think we can't control them completely, and I think they will. It also depends on your area, seasonal time of year. I think it's not going to make as hard of a comeback as people want to think. Because at the end of the day, I think streaming that's where it's going to be at. I think most people would rather be like, oh, if I got to pay for it at home, I got this big old TV for not that much money, and, you know, I got 4 people in the house, and if we watch this, it's not that bad.
I think if they don't go crazy, you know, I think if people are smart in investing, I think if villages are smart in investing, I think you can make it work a little bit. I think you're totally right about seasonal and location. I think if you're in the Southwest, if you're on the West Coast, it's perfect because you can do it almost 365. If you're in the Midwest in Chicago, you might be able to do it, for 4, 5, 6 months if you're lucky.
And then what do you do with the Oscar films that start coming out in November and December? You're not going to watch those at a drive-in, regardless of weather. You don't want to watch Parasite at a drive-in. You just don't.
No, but would you watch, if given the opportunity next week, Black Widow comes out at a drive-in in Chicago, will you go?
Oh, yeah.
Same here. Yeah, I agree.
For exactly. Yeah. So it's a huge. That's why I don't think when they say, oh, it's making a huge comeback, I think it'll make a comeback. I think maybe it'll change the way we do summer blockbusters, which would be very fun.
Sure.
And I'm all for it because, you know, our mom mentioned it the other day. We were raised in a drive-in. We saw Godzilla 2001 in a drive-in. We saw so many Disney movies, and, you know, we were raised on drive-in movies, and we love them. But I'm not going to sit here and lie to the audience saying, oh, yeah, it's going to make the most big comeback and we're all going to go. It's still a novelty thing, I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll stick around forever necessarily. Plus, as soon as movie theaters open up, I don't see it lasting forever.
And that's the thing. It depends on what happens with movie theaters. And we so happen to live in the third market. So there's always going to be a bunch of people who want to go to theaters. The real question is what happens to movie theaters in Iowa, in Alabama, in Montana. Like, that's when it starts getting really interesting, good brother. But we move on. We have so many stuff to talk about, good brother. How about this? We talk about The Boys, Umbrella Academy, Last Chance U, and My Darling, Unsolved Mysteries. We start first with The Boys Season 2 trailer. You and I gushed over this show when it came out. Absolutely adore this show. How excited are you for Season 2?
I'm so excited. Like, this was one of our favorite shows of last year, surprisingly. It was one of those we knew nothing about. It came out of nowhere. And I think we both binged it, and maybe because they put out a few episodes and they do weekly releases, I believe. We went through it so fast.
Yeah. I mean, I remember going to tell you.
Good.
Yeah, and I remember you and I just kind of just going back and forth like in this marathon. And when we got to the airplane scene, and you and I just being grossed out with the gills scene, and just like everything, how we got to the very end. I mean, you know, sitting on the face scene. Like, there was a lot of greatness in season 1. Obviously, we love Simon Pegg. So how your expectations after that ending, obviously, and, you know, us going through this emotional journey, how your expectations for season 2? How can they be any higher? Are you worried that it won't live up to the hype? I mean, Eric Kripke is one of the best in the business. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Like, I really cannot wait for it. Carl Urban's one of my favorite actors in general. Like, playing the Butcher, like, I think he's great. I love the kid, Jack Quaid. I think he's fun because I had never really seen much of him, or if I did, it's one of those, I know that guy, but I don't know his name, and this definitely sold it. It plays the Star Girl. Erin Moratti. Erin Moratti. She's great. I love her. I think she's beautiful. I think the whole thing is just great. Like, the dark turn on a Justice League is just so fun. Everything about it is perfect to me. I am so excited. Like, I have not been more excited about a show since Better Call Saul came out with a new season, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, we could go through. Yeah, you're right. Erin Moratti, I believe you say her name, but she plays Annie. Yeah. You have Homelander, Anthony Starr, absolute beast, dude. He's amazing in that show. Jack Quaid.
Listen, guys, we're from the Midwest. We're gonna mess up a lot of names.
Yeah,
okay?
That's all right too. And, you know, English technically is my second language, so I always hold on to that. Jack Quaid is Huey Campbell. Chase Crawford as the Deep. Karen Fukuhara as female, such a badass character.
That's the one you got, huh? So that's the one we get right. Okay.
Jesse Usher as A-Train. Tamar Kaplan as Frenchie. How good was Frenchie?
Frenchie was such a cute character. So heartfelt.
So, yeah, I'm super excited. I think it's going to be phenomenal. The Boys is amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of who else is on Mother's Milk, Laz Alonso.
We freaking got Haley Joel Osment to make a cameo in the show for like one episode, and that was hilarious.
Got that ass beat. Yeah, you guys need to check it out. The Boys season 1, I highly suggest it. You won't be disappointed. When is it coming out? I missed the date.
I believe later this month.
Beautiful. All right. Oh, so we're going to get a summer treat. Awesome. Shout out to Amazon, Eric Kripke, and everybody part of The Boys. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, because now we're at the end of summer, so now like all these shows we've been talking about are about to come out with their next season. So that's super cool to me.
Yeah, and maybe, you know what we'll do? We'll dedicate an entire episode to the episodes they release, and we'll just gush over those episodes because it really was one of the best shows we got to see last year, and I'm always going to support somebody who brought us Supernatural. Good Brother, a show that
July 31st. Sorry,
awesome.
July 31st is when the new season will be coming out.
Wow, just a few weeks. That's a great way to end this month. Speaking of another show that hit everybody, took everything by storm, The Umbrella Academy having a season 2. Netflix's answer, or I guess their version of that raunchy superhero team. I'm actually about to start Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy. There's something amazing that Guardians of the Galaxy just opened up the doors to this type of extremeness of groups, and we're getting to see these kind of awesome stories being told. So I'm super excited to start Doom Patrol. I have my thoughts on it. As we know, they're getting a season 2 on HBO Max.
Yep.
Shout out to Warner Brothers for believing on that property. But Good Brother, gush over Umbrella Academy.
I'm with you. Both are fantastic. Both are very similar. They came out at a similar time, and people definitely compared the two. I think they're very night and day. I think you're completely on the nose when you said Guardians kind of started this trend of we can be action, we can have violence, at the same time we can have a lot of heart and humor. Umbrella Academy and Doom Patrol, I'm going to say it's not for everyone, but the audience it does hit, it hits 100%, I think. And it's just so charming and quirky. And it's definitely a good fit to throw in your watching habits of, you know, maybe you watched Breaking Bad or The Wire, and then maybe you had How I Met Your Mother or Friends or a Brooklyn Nine-Nine. This definitely hits the middle of like, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. There's definitely going to be some crazy moments, but it's a little easier. It's a little more fun watching. You can definitely tell why these shows hit the Twitterverse and the TikTokverse so fast, and it was so memeable, so gifable, and it's It's very fun. The dancing they do, the movements, the silliness of it doesn't come across as insulting to the audience. Come across as, no, this is entertaining silliness. And I think there's a big difference because some shows don't hit that. Some shows are silly just to be silly, and that's why they don't work. I think Doom Patrol and Umbrella Academy hit the right amount at the right time. Like, it's all about the delivery when it comes to comedy, I think, especially in an action show with superheroes.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and the casting is so important. You have to have up-and-comers, you have to have a strong actor, and then you have to have a notable actor who does have his own chops. That's what both of these shows have. Obviously, Umbrella Academy has one of those stronger cast, but that's what I always loved about Brendan Fraser, one of our favorites. You know, we don't even hide, we're not abashful about how much we love Brendan Fraser.
No, the Mummies are The Mummies raised us.
Yes, and Blast from the Past, shout out to Alicia Silverstone and to Brendan Fraser for that movie. So, and Biodome, and, you know, George.
What was the one with the devil?
Bedazzled. God damn. So if you know, you know. So yeah, that's what's great about
110%. You know,
give you 110%. All right, good brother. Speaking of awesome shows on the streaming, Last Chance U. Obviously, we love sports. Obviously, one of the most impactful shows. What do you got for us?
I love Last Chance U, and what's funny is I've been watching from the beginning because I love sports, college sports, younger athlete sports, just see the insides of it. I got to meet these directors and producers because they did Cheer for Netflix. So I've gotten to meet these guys. I've gotten to talk to them on social media. They're a great crew. Mm-hmm. They're definitely, you can definitely tell why this is the last season because I think they're moving on to bigger films, I believe, is the rumor going around that they're doing films. And, you know, Cheer was supposed to get a season 2. Last season got cut short because of COVID. That's a little inside scoop from here. So they're not going through with that. And they're going to put out a basketball season and they're going to put out one more football. And then that's going to be it, I believe, for that universe. And there's a lot in there. You can go back and watch, I believe, like 5 seasons of football with this one. You're going to have a basketball and a cheer one. I love the direction of the show. I love the real gritty storytelling of these college athletes. Really, you know, not everyone makes it to the pros. And what really happens to these kids that don't make it to the pro, that they don't really, you know, sometimes their life doesn't get much better. And I love that dark, realistic storytelling of they're not trying to sugarcoat it. It's not a 30 for 30 where, you know, you might not get all of it. No, you're going to get the whole thing of, no, this kid ended up going back and selling crack. He was the number 1 running back in the nation, was too small to make it on the next level. He got arrested. And there's something real about that and telling those real stories and opening people's eyes. And I really enjoyed the shows. I can't wait for them last season. They've traveled to like 3 different schools, so this one seems very interesting.
Do we have an idea of when they're going to release it?
See, they're very weird. Their release schedule is always pushed a little bit. I believe we're going to get this in August.
Okay.
But it was pushed from June originally.
Now, how are they... I mean, you knew what happened. You gave us the scoop on what happened to the rest of the cheer season, but... I mean, how are they going to be covering COVID-19, like kind of what the athletes were going to?
Here's the trick of any sports series, and I think you know this better than anyone. It's filmed the year ahead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we're not talking about this season.
Right.
We're talking about last season.
Right.
So luckily football missed it. Cheer, the reason we didn't get cheer is because our season tends to go from the fall semester. Our champions are in the spring semester.
Right.
So when nationals got canceled for cheer, it was right at the height of COVID. That March, April is when we would have our nationals usually. So that is why they don't have an at one, but they have plenty of film from the tryouts and the midseason stuff and all that. But they didn't get to film, obviously, Daytona because there was no Daytona. The football and basketball luckily got to finish their seasons. And you know what, now that you bring it up, that probably does affect the way they want to produce going forward, knowing that, you know, we're probably not going to get young sports. Like, look how the pro sports are going. It's going terrible, which we'll talk about later. But we're definitely not getting youth sports in the summer or winter, you know?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting to bring up the production point. Maybe they try to do week before, 2 weeks before. Maybe they try to put everything in the can as early as a few months and try to do what they did with The Last Dance and really finish editing as we're a week before each episode. It's going to be fascinating to see how we do this in the world post-COVID.
you're a producer. You know how long, like, you can film and record all you want, and then there's a whole another process to
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's literally a whole different project at that point.
Mhm.
But speaking of a different project, I have been all over Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix, and
I want aliens back.
well, good brother, it's funny you say that because I got to an Alien episode last night, and okay, so this is the thing, right? It obviously, first of all, it has the amazing theme song. It has its own rendition of it. It has a great homage to Robert Stack. This is the thing. You couldn't do what they did before. I showed Nicole 2 different episodes, one from the late 80s, early 90s, and one from the late 90s, early 2000s. And I showed her how the formula and the setup for the show was. And it just couldn't work. Literally in the opening of one of the episodes, he mentions 8 stories that they were going to get to. Run from a missing person all the way to aliens and paranormal. It was amazing. I loved it. But that's because we have ADD. The truth of the matter is, in today's Netflix, they love docuseries. That's what people love. I saw a great meme
True crime? Yeah.
Yes, and I saw a great meme that came out saying that Netflix, can you solve this mystery? Me. Probably. Like, that's how we are. Like, we just, we as a society love to sleuth, and we love these stories. So I think, I love the stories, first of all. They are heartbreaking. They are engaging. They make you want to do something, you know? I think if you are a diehard of the original, there's going to be things you hate. You're going to hate the fact that it isn't, a formula, that there isn't a host. But I think part of it is they shouldn't have a host. We saw what happens when you don't have Robert Stack. Nobody attaches to it. Suppose you tell a story, you have it well edited, and I think in the day and age of Netflix streaming true crime stories, this is awesome. And I got to my first alien story, and I'm hoping we get to a ghost story, but I have absolutely enjoyed this interpretation of Unsolved Mysteries.
I couldn't get into it, and I heard from the producers, they said they're going to veer away from alien episodes going forward, because I guess we're really the only audience for it anymore. But I'll give it another try. You know what it is? I think the one thing I agree with you is, without a host, it's a little more timeless now, and you can go episode to episode. So maybe I'll try that and find something that really interests me, and try to get back into it that way and pick and choose what I watch.
To me, one of the best episodes, I can't remember, it might have been episode 1, has to deal with a man gone missing and a hole in the roof. It is.
Oh, I saw. That's the one. I couldn't get into it, Mike.
It is intense. When we got to the very end of it, and then it just keeps rolling. We get to one about a friend in Kentucky is taken to a party and he goes missing, and it goes to conspiracy about what happens in Kansas, and there's a lot of different layers to that, and it goes to what the neighborhoods were like, and I actually think it's a great show. But yeah, I think maybe you should give it another chance, find another episode, and see if you can get into it.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting into it, good brother, it's been hard for fans to get into wrestling, but they try to.
Wait, hold on. Mm-hmm. We forgot. Before we move on to wrestling and everything, I think since we're on TV, we're going to give our deepest condolences to Naya Rivera and her family. Terrible story of another drowning victim, leaving behind a 4-year-old boy. She was the star of Glee. She was a child actress growing up. It's a terrible story. It was all over. And, that just to see another member of that cast, like, I personally, that hit me. You were joking, the High School Musical and the Glee, that hit me when I was that age. So, I definitely grew up with these characters, and to see another one of them go down so young, 32 years old, she's a baby. She has a baby boy. Our deepest condolences to that whole family at this point.
And also to Grant from Mythbusters. We lost him as well.
Yep.
So
another one, yeah.
Sad times, and
47, way too young.
Yeah, and it reminds us of when we lost Chad Gaspar saving his son from the tides, and I guess we're here. I mean, this PSA to everybody is we talk about wearing a mask and staying safe, washing your hands. I think in general, we all want to just live life and have fun and kind of just let loose, and we don't want to think about all the horribleness. But please, before we just start having a great time, just make sure you check your surroundings. Make sure you always have a life vest on. Make sure somebody always knows where you're at. Just the little things, guys. Let's try to prevent these because we're losing too many good people to stuff like this, and it sucks, man. It sucks in a world where we're losing people to pandemics, and a global pandemic. We shouldn't be losing people to stuff like this, and it really, really sucks.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna take that little time off our show to make sure we address that and make sure people are being safe.
Good brother, there's no easy transition, but we make it because the world will try to find a way to heal and it moves forward. And
we're the heroes they don't want, they didn't ask for, but we're here anyway.
And we use the word heroes very, very loosely here on the Good Brothers. Let's start with WWE Extreme Rules Horror Show, or Horror Show presented by Extreme Rules, or Extreme Rules presented by Rob Zombie. Good brother, first of all, what do you think about the name?
At this point in time, I think they've realized, listen, wrestling-wise, there's nothing we can do with empty arenas. And we decided not to close down. The competition's not closing down. Okay, we got to keep pushing it. At this point, I don't blame them. This whole year is a wash. I think the best quote you keep hearing from Conrad, or your personal close friend and my personal best friend, is this year we're not going to see a lot of clips of this year. This year's going to eventually, and hopefully in 5 years, couple years, when this is all past us, hopefully, praying to God, and we get crowds back, we're not going to look back at this, really. We're not. It's almost going to be a forgotten year. It's going to be one of those, project pieces that we look back and break down, but we're not going to highlight it. We're going to try to erase it as much as we can.
Yeah, you know who I feel? I feel bad for a lot of different people, man. I feel bad for
Drew
Otis and
McIntyre.
Mandy. I was going to get to Drew, but I want to start off with Otis and Mandy. Like Conrad says, we want to kind of just wrap up this year. It is what it is. The pop those two would have gotten at WrestleMania when they kissed sucks. They'll never be able to duplicate that. You just can't, unless he wins. Unless he wins, cashes in money at the pick at WrestleMania. You'll never get that moment again. The Drew McIntyre
Bayley and Sasha.
Sasha.
There's so many.
Here's the thing. Bayley and Sasha, I think, have taken full advantage of it, though. That's how great those two are. That's how amazing of not just performers when it comes to in-ring, but out of the ring. That's why they can do so many things when they're done with wrestling. But they've completely taken control of, quote-unquote, empty arenas. Like, they are the queens of that, And I think the one thing that makes me sad is the two main champions on both shows when it comes to AEW and WWE. And here's the thing. They were replaying McIntyre versus Brock either on YouTube or on one of the shows. I can't remember, the official WWE channel. And he wins the title, and the microphone picks him up saying, "Oh my God," And you could just feel it for a second there, like that moment of that whole journey, you know how it is as an athlete, but imagine, a performer where your direct action doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the results. You could do everything right your entire career, and if Vince doesn't pick you, he doesn't pick you. And you could see in that moment that everything went right, everything was aligned, and he won it. And you can hear it in his voice, and for him not to have that moment of hearing thousands of people pop for him, and trickled that down then. People didn't get paid. People lost their jobs. People lost their jobs a few weeks after that. Like, this whole it sucks, man. And every time we get one of these specialty shows, it feels like it's just more of a reminder of where we're at. Even though they're trying really hard not to remind us, I feel like it's definitely just more of a, hey, this is the world we're living in right now.
Yeah, and it's also entertainment for entertainment's sake sometimes.
Sure.
Let's see, we know this sounds silly and crazy, but that's why we know you're going to watch, because we know you want to see what the hell an eye for an eye match is. We know you want to see a swamp. You might talk. It's one of those press. What is it? What's the term? There's no bad press.
Any press is good press.
Yeah, any press is good press. I think it's like that. Like, hey, you may bury it, but you're talking about it.
Absolutely. And speaking of it, why don't we find out what's going to get buried, what's going to get praised, what is going to get 5 stars from the crazy Dave Meltzer. We'll start off with the United States Championship. Apollo Crews defending the title against MVP. Really fast, what do you think of the new title?
I love it.
Same here.
Yeah,
I do like the idea.
Real slick.
I do like the render they did of it having more blue on the top. But I think for what it looks like, I was making this comment to my friend Devin, who I saw him at Allstate Arena the 4-day weekend that they were here for Survivor Series. And I told him, the one thing that looked weird the entire weekend, everything was great. The weirdest moment is when you had Shinsuke Nakamura holding up the Intercontinental title. You had Roderick Strong holding up the North American title, and then you have AJ Styles holding up that United States Championship. And I'm like, look, granted, it looks cooler than the spinner one, but it always looked weird. It always looked like a toy. And mind you, these are all meant to be bought as toys. But then when you see the new United States one, you're like, oh, okay, that's how it would look if we were still in the territory days, but you could still make cool toys from it. It's still going to look cool in the new 2K game. And I think that's the difference between the old one and this one.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It needs to look like an actual title, not a toy.
That you can then sell as a toy. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Title first, then sell it. Don't make a toy and then try to make it a belt.
Yeah, bingo. And speaking of it, who you got winning the belt?
Apollo.
Do you think this is leading for Bobby Lashley to take the title from him?
Yeah, I think eventually.
What if we have Ricochet and Cedric costing Apollo the match, joining MVP and Bobby Lashley?
I would love that, and it's sometimes it feels like they're setting it up, but it also feels like they're sometimes burying them. So that would be a fun swerve.
Speaking of the best in the business, SmackDown Women's Championship going on. Bayley defending the title against Nikki Cross. Who do you
got? Bayley, obviously, and I hope they break up Nikki and Alexa at this point. I think they've kind of run their course as a tag team.
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is where it gets interesting. For the Raw Women's Championship, Asuka defending Sasha Banks. Now, I know WWE loves Asuka. We all love Asuka. She's one of the best. Like, they're easy, right? Okay. But I don't think they took into account how over Sasha and Bayley were going to be. And I don't think they were necessarily thinking of making this a short run for Asuka. But I think you have to strike while the iron's hot, and I think you have to put it on Sasha and just go with it. I know you want to split them up. I know it's easy to say Bayley's going to win, and then, Sasha's going to help her, and then when it's time for Bayley to help Sasha, she's not going to, or something happens. But I feel like it's just something more intriguing when they both have titles. You're like, wait, how is this going to happen? Is there more dissension with one of them losing the title opposed to one of them being prevented to win the title? If both of them have it, is the first domino to fall the tag titles that they're holding? I think there's more storyline if she wins. Even I love Asuka, even though she's supposed to be the one that's holding the torch while Becky's gone, if Becky ever comes back. I don't know. What do you think?
It's really hard right now because I think where they messed up the last few months is not building female stars enough, because now you have Charlotte's going to be gone for a while, getting some, personal surgeries, and good on her being open about it and not letting people take control of the narrative. Becky's obviously having a baby. I don't think we're going to see Ronda Rousey back for a while, if ever. Well, I think we'll see her, but just not for a long time. So you really are limited. I'm glad they brought Shayna Baszler back, because I agree with you. There's so much you can do with this story, but you need to do it right to spread out the talent. Asuka's killing it. Kairi Sane is so underused. Nia Jax experiments almost like a Braun Strowman, where you keep having to put her away, and maybe 1 year you might be able to strike again, but like everything's so fresh still. So they have everything. The pieces are there, but they have to really be smart about which pieces they move at which time, honestly.
So we're going Bayley and we're going with Sasha?
No, I'm going Asuka still.
All right, I'll go Asuka, because that's the pick to make, but I really want Sasha to win.
Just keep moving it down. I think at this point, move it down as much as you can, and you hope by Royal Rumble you get an audience, even if it's a smaller one.
Yeah, totally. Moving on, good brother, we have Braun Strowman defending his championship, the Universal Championship, against Bray Wyatt.
Is he defending?
No, he's not. It's a non-title match. Yeah, it's a non-title match. You're absolutely right. So it's the Universal Champion, Braun Strowman, taking on Bray Wyatt in a Wyatt Swamp fight, non-title match. This is the cult leader, Bray Wyatt. This is Swamp, Louisiana, Bray Wyatt. I think, Braun Strowman is a big dude, seems likable, tweets out some interesting stuff. I saw him at Wrigley, seemed like nice guy. Like, he seems like a good dude, but he might tweet out some interesting stuff. with that in mind, I don't think the man needs a championship. If anything, all you do by having him hold the title is hurt him, because that means you either make him unstoppable and you squash everybody, and then you have to come up with a way to beat him, which means you only have one or two guys that are going to do it. So this way, at least with Bray Wyatt, it's always that mystery of like who's the one that is going to take it out from him. I think that's the difference of it. They both seem like hard L's to take, but with Braun Strowman, it's like we only know Roman Reigns is going to be the one that beats him. You know, with Bray Wyatt, the right type of storyline, hey, maybe Daniel Bryan will go over on him. And I think that's the difference. But I think Braun Strowman, I think he wins this because this is how we got to get the Fiend back.
No, exactly. I think it's going to go, okay, he beat Bray Wyatt. He beats Swamp Leader Bray Wyatt. He's going to lose to the Fiend. You gave him a long enough title reign. You finally delivered. It's 2 years too late from when you should have done it.
Yeah.
You should have pulled the trigger years ago. That's fine when he was over on Roman Reigns. It's going to be the Fiend. I don't think we get Roman back anytime soon.
I agree.
And so at that point, I think the Fiend wins it. You let him carry it for a while. You have Daniel Bryan. You have AJ Styles. And you have Matt Riddle. You have guys that are right there anyway. And I'm okay with it. So I don't think you're in a huge rush. You might be moving up some guys. You know, we don't know what's going to happen with Adam Cole. Is he going? You know, I think him and Undisputed should pull what they did on NXT and just go to Raw and do all that stuff there. I think we need a little bit of a shakeup, honestly, because I think Raw has those top tier guys, a few more than SmackDown. So I would like to switch it. You do have some nice heels on SmackDown with like Baron Corbin and Sheamus. So there's enough there. I do think that when it comes to this situation, we're going to see Braun Strowman win, but the Fiend at whatever version of SummerSlam they do is going to beat him there. And that's the one that takes out Braun Strowman. He beat everyone but the Fiend.
How do you think SummerSlam is going to look?
Same as WrestleMania, maybe a 2-night thing.
Oh, you think so? So you definitely think it'll be a 2-night?
That'll be fun. I would love that.
It'll probably be better.
2-night thing.
But it'll probably be better because they do
it.
have people in the Performance Center now, and they have them. WWE is one of these companies where once they have it under their belt, they know kind of what to do.
Exactly. And we saw NXT finally adapt and be like, listen, we'll just throw it like 2-week events on NXT on USA, and it's been working great for them. And guess what? They've been winning the ratings war.
I have a feeling they're going to lose this one, though. I have a feeling that this next time, but I don't. Nobody cares. Anyway, nobody cares.
No one does.
No,
it's good wrestling. We got 2 good shows. Yeah. You pick which one you want to watch first, which I tend to do NXT, and then I watch AEW right after.
Yep. Moving on, we have for the WWE Championship, Drew McIntyre defending the title against Dolph Ziggler in a stipulation match that has yet to be determined. I'm assuming a ladder match.
Something like that.
Drew wins.
Yeah, Drew wins, and it's one of those things where the best thing that is going on this year is Drew McIntyre's title reign. Like, I saw What Culture kind of mention it where, you know, this is probably the best face champion you've had in years, and like such a long time where it's all working. Nothing silly has happened. Like, everything he's done has made sense. It is properly written for his character. You keep setting up guys to go against, and he looks strong. I love Drew McIntyre. We are huge Drew McIntyre fans. Please come on our show with Mike. Yeah, Drew wins.
Yeah, absolutely. And please bring back your original theme song for at least one WrestleMania. I think everybody really wants that. Drew McIntyre, unfortunately, he just doesn't have the live audience. But, like, here's the thing. Drew McIntyre will forever be over now because of that Claymore kick. People don't understand how a great finisher changes everything in a person's career.
Yeah, speaking of that, it's going to be Randy Orton that takes the title away from him.
I don't think so. I think that's who he goes against at SummerSlam. I think the real conversation becomes, does Undisputed Era jump Drew McIntyre post Randy Orton? That's, to me, the only other way. Because we know Seth Rollins is being put to the side. Because we know he's going to have to go away for the baby. Not only when the baby's out, but when the baby's, around, you got to be careful with COVID, and you got to be careful with mom and baby. So we know that's going to happen. So
we know Brock Lesnar got scratched. Like, he was rumored, and pretty good source rumored to be coming back sooner than later. Obviously, with everything going on, they are not going to bring Brock Lesnar back without a crowd.
Nope.
So that's going to push another year, let's say, months, at least half a year.
So with all that in mind, Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see with moving forward, but obviously Drew wins this one. And finally, good brother, the match everybody's talking about, Rey Mysterio versus Seth Rollins, eye for an eye. How does this play out?
Hopefully I get a CGI eyeball popping out.
Who wins?
I don't care. Seth Rollins.
Seth Rollins. How pregos is Becky?
She's only like in her second trimester if the announcement's anything. So like,
okay.
Money in the Bank, 3 months. No, she's got a little bit to go still.
Okay, before he's gone. Okay.
Unless he just wants, but it's Seth Rollins. If he wants an extended leave, he gets an extended leave.
Yeah, so maybe Ray wins.
Listen, I'm ready to go now. Like,
yeah.
I'm good to go. Okay, cool, guys. I'll see ya.
Yeah.
But then I kind of feel bad for his staple. So I think you need to set that up a little bit more for when he's gone. I don't think enough setup has been done.
Although we haven't seen Austin Theory because of all the stuff that's going on with this speaking out movement, so we'll see what happens with that. And unfortunately for Murphy, if there's no Theory and Rollins is going to be gone to begin with in the next few months, it doesn't seem like that's going to last forever to begin with. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I'm going with Ray.
No AOP.
Yeah, no AOP with injury. I think it's going to end up being they're going to hit them in the eye with something, or they're gonna fall onto the ramp or to those stairs. Like I don't know if they're gonna put a thumb in the eye.
I don't know, man, but I want to see what happens. That's all I do know.
I agree. So those are our thoughts about WWE Extreme Rules. Let's see what we get right on that
Extreme
craziness.
Rules horror.
Oh, horror show. You're absolutely right. Good brother. Before we head out, Far Cry 6 shows us our guy, Gus Esposito. What do you think? He looks amazing. Phenomenal actor. One of the best bad guys in all of television. Well, obviously, you're not the biggest of gamers. I like Far Cry, not my favorite series, but I would love to see them do something with Gus in some type of property with Far Cry.
No, I agree. And you put his TV character with his real last name. It's Giancarlo Esposito.
Yeah, Giancarlo Esposito. Yes.
Gus Freeman.
Yes, Gus Freeman.
I don't play video games.
Yeah.
And I don't, even story-wise, the Far Cry is definitely more of a moment thing than a long-term storytelling like The Last of Us, where I want to watch it. But I watched the trailer like 6 times because it's basically a form of Gus Freeman being this dictator of this country, talking to his grandson with a freaking live grenade. It was amazing. I love the one thing I'll give Far Cry is they do a great job going with the times.
Yeah.
Like when they did the very revolution patriotic style when Donald Trump was elected, and now they got this rioting dictatorship kind of mode going. They'll always throw the occasional throwback in there. So I like what they do. I think the delivery sometimes lacks, but I like the ideas they have.
I'm so excited to see Gus in Mandalorian season 2.
Oh my God, I cannot wait. He's in everything. Like, and he should be in everything. Him and Better Call Saul is some of my favorite TV. I truly believe Better Call Saul is just slightly under the most perfect show in Breaking Bad. And that's saying something.
He's the best.
Like, Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad are, to me, 2 of the top 10 shows of all time. And they're in the same universe. Like, that never happens. That will never happen again either. Unless Game of Thrones really comes out with a banger of another series.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see about that. Good brother.
If I get Jon Snow stories outside the wall, then yes, it will happen.
Well, they might have to, depending on everything that's going on. HBO might have to, go into the well one more time to see if they can pull that off. Good brother.
They want to, too.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they want to.
They have like 7 ideas. They just can't deliver on the one they want.
Well, and, production costs a lot of money, and HBO likes to travel. They like to go on location, so...
Oh, and COVID, that happened.
Yeah, so that whole thing. Finally, good brother, we know that the Washington Slurs are no longer the Washington Slurs. They're going to be the Washington something, but now there's reports about some crazy scandals going on in the front office. Go figure. So, I mean... It seems like them changing the names had a lot to do with not just finance, but because of the story that's supposed to be coming out from the Washington Post. We still don't know the name. Daniel Snyder is one of the worst owners in all of professional sports, if not the worst. So what are you feeling about this? And, obviously, there's so much that you could say about how bad of an organization they are. You could say so much about how crazy some of these billionaires are just in general in the world, let alone in professional sports. But this idea that they're doing this move strictly for, PR. It's not only is it true, but it's kind of disheartening.
No, it really is. And, it's funny, like, you're huge into sports, and we had this conversation, and you even were telling me, you're like, I just don't see it happening, Alex. I hope it does. Maybe this is the time, but you're like, I just don't see it. So I'm glad there's actual change happening. I think we both are. It's so defeating to see, like, just, like, you already know some of these guys are scumbags, but when it officially comes out, it's just, it gives a little sour taste in your mouth, especially I guarantee someone like you who's in this industry. I'm a podcast person. I'm a pop culture person. You're an actual professional sports interviewer and coverage man and connoisseurance of it.
Yeah, speaking of that, I got all my rights. I got all my picks correct for UFC 251, but that's just a humble brag.
Did. Shout out to you, man. Shout out to you.
So
that doesn't. I don't care what sport it is, to call something 100%, even WWE, is almost impossible.
Yeah, so that I was pretty happy about that, especially with everything kind of how shady the UFC was. But shout out to them. It seems like they've kind of figured it out. And I'm not the biggest of Dana White fan, but I've always said that man is a beast when it comes to being a promoter. So they've done that. And what we're seeing now in these sports, we're about 9 days away from professional baseball, about 11 days away from NBA. We've already seen 2 people got snitched on from the snitch line in the NBA for breaking quarantine. I mean, we're living in a weird world. And while all this is happening, Korea is playing Korean baseball. And people are in stands watching certain sports. So I think it's a weird, bizarre world. I don't want to make it political because we've had a nice show. But when we start getting into these realms, they're like, you want sports back? You think the SEC is coming back? When the commissioner of the SEC is saying, I don't know if this is happening. When you see Ivy League and different tournaments being like, no, we're only going to be within schedule. Maybe we might not even know that. And all out canceling seasons. And we're still arguing about the merits that whether or not we should have them. I'm like, we'll be lucky if they continue.
Exactly. And I always go back to the original quote you had is, we haven't earned shit yet.
So until then, we'll see how this plays out with Washington. We'll see if they end up not only going through with this, but I don't think it's going to be the Warriors.
It's not, but I would love it.
Sure, but here's the thing though, like even with that, let's say they do become the Warriors, right? But they also keep that some of the imagery of the Native Americans.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem, and it's almost a loophole for them to use. So to me, I'm like, look, just go completely. One of the names, I guess, in Vegas that was the leader in the board was Red Tails, which was a World War I aircraft or military, like Air Force group.
I believe it was, if I'm correct, the Red Tails were the first African American fighter pilot in World War II.
There we go. Yes.
If I believe I'm correct, I believe that's what it was, were the Red Tails.
And I'm sure they would love it because they get to keep that Washington R that you see all the time on their hats and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So, and then Red Hawks is another one that's really popular. So I think that's what you could see in the leaderboard. I don't think they're going to go Warriors because of not just what happens in Golden State, but I think they want to just stay away from any type of imagery. The real question is what does this mean moving forward for other teams? I think, honestly, this only happened because of where we're at politically, where they were at financially, and what it seems like we're going to find out, behind the curtains. So we'll keep our eyes on this story. We'll definitely have a proper...
Blackhawks, Indians, Cleveland, you're on next.
And what I wonder, like you and I talk about this a lot, and, that we'll do it proper on Sports from the Couch. I wonder how much of it is them doing this kind of takes the pressure off of a lot of different schools and a lot of different programs and a lot of different professional teams. That's what I'm interested to see is whether or not pressure goes away. We know Cleveland is going to change the logo. They've already kind of gone away with it. The real question is, will they stop being the Indians? That's the question.
I think what's fascinating from an outside person who's not in the sports is the idea of if the main problem fixed it. Like the Washington Redskins have always been the biggest issue when it came to any sports of offensive name. So for me, it's like, okay, if the most offensive thing is changing, that kind of should tell everyone that, like, it's okay to make the change. Like, you're not above it. Like, if this one decided it was time, and there's a lot less. There's like, I think the Chicago Blackhawks are a little easier. I think maybe just changing the logo to the crow would be a lot easier, or the actual Black Hawk animal. That's me personally. I have a big issue with using a Native American face. I think the Cleveland Indians are definitely next in line. Like, we need to get rid of the offensive face they put on their logo.
Let me ask you this. What happens to the Atlanta Braves and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Atlanta. See, the Chiefs for me is because a chief is just a chief. A chief can have many meanings.
But the arrowhead.
And an arrowhead is a rock.
Man,
so
I see.
I have more of an issue with actual facial things. Like
sure.
Actual offensive facial. That's your recognition of what a guy's supposed to look like.
So you agree
to
with me, though?
With Kansas City Chiefs is it's an arrowhead. Arrowheads are actually part of more cultures than just Native American culture.
And
they were also part of the Spanish culture. They've never had Native American tendencies. And now, if you're talking about chants and stuff, that comes down to the city. That comes down because look at Atlanta. They already announced they're going to take away the chant.
The chap.
Same with Florida State.
The chop is one of the most offensive things in all of sports.
Yep.
And that's what I was getting to is, like, I think there is a difference. There's a great point that you brought up about what a arrowhead actually is. The real thing is, in this country, we interpret arrowheads for indigenous Native American people. So it's definitely a little bit of a blurry line. You might be correct. I'm not going to fight that. It's not my battle to fight. But I think the interesting thing is the chant. I think the tomahawk chant, I thought it in 1998. Not only that it was annoying, but I'm like, it just doesn't sound right. It's like doing a Native American scream that you would hear in Peter Pan. So, but I also want to stress this, good brother, as we kind of wind down. I don't think you're a bad person if you're a fan of the Braves. I don't think you're a bad person if you're a fan of the Chiefs or the Indians or the Blackhawks. Alex, am I not a Blackhawks fan?
Yes.
So, like, am I a bad person? Do I, do I not fight for rights of indigenous people and Latinx people, black people, trans people, white people, the community?
Exactly. Would I fight you tooth and nail to say the Blackhawks logo is offensive? Yes. Can I find the middle ground of there's a lot more on top of the list we need to handle first? Do I think Chicago handles it better than most cities? Yes. Do I believe it still needs to be changed? Absolutely, yes. But is it, like I said, we talk about Atlanta, we talk about Cleveland. There is a lot of issues we need to get down before we get there.
Absolutely. So it's always an interesting conversation. I also never want to make people feel like I'm attacking them or that they...
No, this isn't you. You didn't decide the name. It's not your fault that you were raised as a child to love the Atlanta Braves. And we're not trying to take away anything you grew up with or say it doesn't matter. We're just saying that there's a lot of situations that we named about 7. Take away the Blackhawks. Take away that one. Even if you there's 10 more that need to be handled because it is offensive to a people that were slaughtered and homes were taken away.
And, we always have those cases of like the Florida Seminoles where they have, I guess, an agreement with them, but even that's a little fishy because of money and stuff. Again, that's a little bit above.
Fishy.
Yeah, it's definitely a conversation that if it's going to be talked about deserves a true deeper dive on it. But yeah, I just thought it was an interesting conversation kind of bring up and what it means, culturally moving forward. We also found out, when we talk about, imagery and whatnot, that I think it was Halle Berry or somebody back down from a role that would have been a gay man or a trans man. It was just
she wanted to play a trans man, so a man becoming a woman. I believe we don't want to be offensive. This is just
off top of the dome. Yeah.
So I believe that's what it was. If she wanted to play basically a man turning into a woman, a trans man, and she quickly dropped out of it because thank God she listens to people and she heard the outcry because I'm with her. Look at Poise, look at Versace. There are so many shows with plenty of. Look at RuPaul's Drag Race, one of the most popular award-winning shows ever. There's plenty of people to play these characters, and for us to think that only a famous person can do it is ignorant, honestly. Like there are so many fantastic young actors ready for these kind of roles. There's a role for everyone. So for have someone fill that role instead is again would have been arrogant. So the fact that she dropped out, good on her.
And I think, and the reason I bring it up to kind of bring it full circle is there's nuance to that conversation. Can you have a conversation that says business-wise, I understand why you want to cast Halle Berry or you want to cast Scarlett Johansson. I get it. Do I understand the idea of actors should be able to play roles? The point of acting is to lose yourself. Do I also understand this is an opportunity to open doors for different people that haven't been allowed in, to allow for different exposure, to allow for different cultures to come in. All these things can be true. And it's the same with sports. Can you be a fan of the Chicago Blackhawks? Absolutely. Should you be open to some form of change? Of course.
Yep.
Is it your responsibility to change the world? Absolutely not. But maybe you shouldn't be a roadblock to that change. And I think
exactly. There's a difference.
And that's kind of where I always come at. I'm like, man, love your sports, be a diehard, and there's nothing better than buying a brand new jersey. So if sometimes we got to make a change, we got to make a change. And this is where I'll end it for sports teams. Moving forward, think about how lucky we are in Chicago. Chicago Cubs, Chicago Bulls, Chicago Bears, Chicago White Sox. You know, like we have these teams that have the Chicago Red Stars. You know, you could just the Chicago Rush. We have these, over the years, team names that are just really easy, universal. You know, the Chicago Bulls logo you can see all over the world. You know what I'm saying? Like there's this, be smart, be cool, be creative. You don't have to be so, I guess, basic is where I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Oakland Raiders. Like, they took this concept of an old school pirate, which we don't really know much about pirates as much as we think, beside the movies and what we decided was true. But at least it's not. It's a creative way around it. It's almost a mythical character that they decided to use, and it works. And it's one of the most, again, universally known logos.
Absolutely. So that's always, you know, think about how stupid the Browns, shout out to our Browns fans, the stupid the Browns sounds, and even that, like, it's easy. You know, like, I just feel like
it's not offensive.
Yeah, well, I guess we can make it offensive if we wanted to, good brother, but that'll be for only the Patreon listeners.
But I mean,
if we only for the Patreon users. Good brother, final thoughts. It was a long show, but we had a lot of stuff to talk about.
No, we definitely covered everything we wanted to cover. Oh, shout out to Keith Lee, bask in his glory.
Whoop, whoop. Speaking of basking in the glory, shout out to Alyssa and Nicole, whose show debuted. Good brother, it's officially the first show that Mercado Airwaves has produced that is outside of our little quarantine bubble of sports from the couch, murder mysteries, and more. The Good Brothers
doesn't have a Mercado in it yet. But
that is a fascinating show, Gone Missing Podcast. It is kind of an offshoot, a spinoff, if you will, of Murder Mysteries and More. Hosted by
Definitely a spinoff, yeah.
Yeah, hosted by two awesome, educated, hardworking women who are looking into cases that not only didn't get necessarily all of the most mainstream coverage and conversation, but more importantly, it spotlights missing people of color, missing indigenous women, you know, trans people, gay people, people that are, Alex, as we know, who are true crime fans, the less missing, you know? And
exactly. Big shout out to them, because Nicole brought this idea to us a long time ago, and we both agreed. We're like, we should not be involved in this. Like, this should be your thing and how you want to run it. And I'm so proud of her, how she ran it, how it's going. And, you know, it's definitely one of those things where, like, we're Law and Order when we're all together, and this is our SVU form, which is almost, if not more, going to be more successful or as successful. So that's really cool coming from where she brought it to us at the table, from us saying, no, you run with it, to her, it's finally out there. So that's really cool, I think.
Yeah, and it's been awesome to listen to all the episodes, you know, putting them together, and they've brought some great stuff to the table, and I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy it.
It's important messages that we always like to put across, and now we can take that from being side stories on murder mysteries to being the highlighted of its own show. And these are people, and these are someone's sisters and mothers and brothers, and you know, their stories need to be told.
And I think what's going on with Unsolved Mysteries, it's going to be a nice kind of another type of thing to add to your repertoire, because it's not going to be on the episode of Unsolved Mysteries. It's going to be something a little bit more close to home. So that's great. And I want to shout out, we have some really awesome work coming for people for Murder Mysteries and More. I am personally working on some really heavy, deep scripts, and they are going to be very interesting. We took a lot of your input, fans. We took a lot of the criticisms, a lot of the praise, and I think you guys are going to like what we bring. I hope you guys are enjoying The Good Brothers. The Good Brother and I are actually working on names for what the Quarantine Files are going to bring. We promise you we're bringing you that Star Wars list. It's coming, friends. But Good Brother, don't forget, you know, it's we got to give the people what they want, so we got to make it spicy. You better have a prequel on your top 5.
Oh, I do. I already do.
Oh, man. I was trying to make a bid. You actually
I have
do.
A prequel.
Oh, man.
I have 2 of the new series, and it's great. I can't wait. I have two. Only, yeah. I have two from the modern series. I got one from the. I can't wait, Mike. We're gonna fight so much on this.
I'm on
I
Twitter.
can't wait for you to see how low Rogue One really is.
I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media.
And I love
Instagram, Mike Mercado Media. He's on Twitter at Mercado21 Alex, and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The show's Twitter is at Good Brothers Pod. The network is at Mercado Airwaves. Don't forget to check out the Gone Missing podcast. Guys, support us, become a producer at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves, and show off the swag that you bought from us. Support the shows at teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves. Play video games with us. I'm almost done with The Last of Us. I promise we'll get through it before Ghost of Tsushima. Twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves. And of course, YouTube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. Shout out to all of you who have bought apparel, who support us, produce us. We'll make sure that we put a video thanking each and every one of you and add them to all the episodes because you deserve all the shout outs. Until then, good brother. Final thoughts?
Adios.
For the good brother himself, Alex Mercado, I'm the good brother, Mike Mercado. We'll see you on the next episode of The Good Brothers here on the Mercado Airwaves Network.
Thanks for joining us here on The Good Brothers, here on Mercado Airwaves.
Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha's on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod, our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and more, and of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network, and of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast to like, rate, review, and share us, and please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. Hey guys, Mike here from Mercado Airwaves. We want to thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network. And if you want to see what we're up to outside of the station, please follow us all over social media. I'm on Twitter at Mike M Media and on Instagram at Mike Mercado Media. You can follow the good brother Alex Mercado on Twitter at Mercado21Alex and on Instagram at Mercado2121. The lovely Nicole Mancha is on all social media platforms at Typing When Tipsy. You can follow the network on Twitter at Mercado Airwaves, our pop culture show, The Good Brothers, on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod, our true crime shows on Instagram at Murder, Mysteries, and More, and of course, like us on Facebook at Mercado Airwaves. You can see all our videos on YouTube.com/Mike Mercado 2333 or by searching Mercado Airwaves Network. We play video games on Twitch, twitch.tv/Mercado Airwaves Network, and of course, you can support our network by finding a tier just for you, whether you want early access, you want to be part of polls, you want to win contest prizes, by visiting us at patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And we really appreciate it wherever you get your favorite podcast. So like, rate, review, and share us. And please spread the word. For the good brother, Alex Mercado, for the lovely Nicole Mancha, I'm Mike Mercado. Thank you so much for all the support you've given us here on the network.